Thank you for joining us for this episode of That Solo Life, the podcast for PR pros and marketers who work for themselves. People like me, Michelle Kane with Voice Matters, and my ever wonderful co host, Karen Swim of Solo PR Pro. Hey, Karen, how are you?
Hi, Michelle. I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good, doing good. We're rolling along these days, right? Everyone's on the same roller coaster ride, whether we like it or not.
I know this time of year gets really busy for everyone as we, get deeper into the spring season. It seems
Yeah,
like the pace of everything just picks up. So I
it
am trying to
does.
catch my breath.
Right, right. What do they call it? Maycember? Yeah, and I don't even have anybody in school, so God bless all the parents out there dealing with year-end everything and graduations, and it's
Yes.
a it's a fun poppin' time, but today we wanna talk about something that we're calling "Here we go again." Just some things we've seen out there, especially on social media where, we drum this into our heads, our listeners' heads of in this era of AI and misinformation, how some people just can't help themselves. They'll post something
Mhm.
on social and they'll do it in such a manipulative way that it's quite easy for the person reading it or seeing it to go, "Yeah, you're right," without taking a beat to go, wait a second. Let me verify this. Is this correct? What perhaps is this poster's motive? What's going on here? Which I think and certainly not think, I know in this day and age, we all have to take a beat before our trigger finger hits the angry emoji.
Yeah, it's really interesting that I find even with people that are well-intentioned and
Yeah. Oh,
maybe
totally.
passionate about a particular cause or a particular issue, and it could have nothing. This is so far beyond, politics. It could be,
Yeah,
you're passionate about, animals, and someone shares something and it, triggers you
sure.
because honestly, can we just be honest about it? I think for a majority of people that use social media today, they do have a motive, and that motive is to get seen,
Yeah.
to draw engagement. Whereas in the earlier days of social media, I believe that the motives were a bit different. It wasn't to amplify your visibility and make money off of your content. It was
Right.
genuinely engagement. You were looking
Yeah.
for community. You were genuinely sharing, opinions and funny stories and what you were doing. And as the tools, got more sophisticated and we learned about metrics, it is people are using it. And so clickbait is
Yeah.
real. And I don't know that we're ever going to get away from that.
So true. And being this far down the road with it all, we all know, guess what still works? Community content. Things that, if you're a business sharing about your people, interesting things, they'll say, "Wow, we got so many clicks and comments on that." Yeah, because before, kind of like anything, right? When people get, when humankind gets involved, sometimes we tend to ruin things. And I
This
think,
is very true.
yeah, we've seen that definitely in the social media landscape. And I don't know, we'll see where the pendulum swings, or maybe it'll just swing into a totally different direction, and we won't have to worry about it anymore.
I mean, I think it's particularly exhausting
Yeah.
as a reader because you
Yes.
read something, and even when it is a very well done piece of content that seems thoughtful, you still have to take a step back and do your own research because people have a way of presenting facts to fit their narrative and to fit,
Yep.
their own agenda. And sometimes people get riled up about it, and so there's a headline about something, or some perceived wrong, some perceived slight, then everybody jumps in and suddenly you have like 900 people agreeing with you, and that's not really what happened. And as public
Right.
relations professionals, I feel like it's one reason why I've had to push back on my own social media use, because it's very difficult to be off the clock because we're always fighting myths, mal, and
Yes.
disinformation, and we do it for a living.
Yeah.
So when I see things, I can't just pretend that, hey, I'm not a PR professional who, deals in ethics. So I'd almost rather just shield myself and be like, you know what? I don't want to see this in my off time.
Eh, how true is that, right? And yeah, it took me a while to come to that realization of why does this bother me so much? Well, because it's part of who you are. Not that I'm, some high and mighty perfect person, but yeah, you're right. It's like, well, that's incorrect. Don't and I see you trying to sway people into thinking something's incorrect, which, some instances it's not harmful, but in some instances it absolutely is. And it's definitely part of our responsibility, certainly as we, conduct ourselves and surely how we help our clients because you want them to remain, you know, untainted and on the up and up and you know, still being a source of trust that
Yeah,
people
I
can depend
think
on at the end of the day. So,
I agree. And when it comes to client work, I think today more than ever, it's important to resort to some of the things that we used to do very routinely, such as fact sheets. You don't see those that
mhm,
much anymore, but I think it's important for companies to have on their website very clearly who they are,
mhm,
what they believe, what they
yeah,
represent. If you're doing a campaign, you should definitely have a Q&A that's ready to
mhm,
go, that is somewhere that answers questions so that when people are searching for facts, they can find those facts easily. And you really got to spoon feed the public. This does not mean, of course, that
mhm,
someone's not going to take images that your client puts out and manipulate them, or that they're not going to take words that are put out and manipulate them. But I think you have to make sure that your clients have a go-to place where it's factual information, regardless of what industry they're in,
yeah,
because it's so needed today.
yeah. I mean, and even more so, right? So if a manipulation occurs or a misquote occurs, you have something to point to and go, facts are right here. Nice try. Yeah,
And
so
I
true.
mean, make sure that your clients understand social media policies, because read those privacy policies, read what
Yeah,
they can do with your data, who owns the information that you are sharing, because you let go of some controls. And then you want to make sure that your clients understand this as a protection to you and as a protection to them, so that there are certain things that they may not be sharing on social media channels, that they're sharing through
mm,
owned media, and that they're having disclaimers about how content can be used. I think that we just have to get
yeah,
really, really stringent around putting those guardrails around those things to protect our clients and, to protect ourselves too. Branded
oh,
images,
totally.
pointing people to, where they can go to get images that they can use publicly of your company, of the products, how they can utilize your logo. What are those guidelines? I mean, again, some of that stuff seems to be disappearing off of websites,
Mm,
and I'm
yeah,
sure that that's because of a lack of space, wanting to streamline your site. But these things are important and they can protect you.
yeah. I mean, it's like anything. If you don't control what you own, someone's going to do it for you. So I think it's true.
Well
It's
said.
like, don't ditch those newsroom pages. Don't ditch those source pages on your website where, like you say, people can download legitimate information and just find out what they need without that meddling of any kind of third party trying to swing things in another direction. Because as we've seen, things take off quickly, and often the rebuttals or the corrections aren't shouted as loud
That's
as,
true.
it's like, oh, by the way, that was wrong. And, we'll get into the whole bunny trail of trying to convince people what facts are. That's exhausting, but I haven't given up.
And I think if you go back, we'll share some past episodes with you because we touched on parts of these topics. But
Mhm.
one thing that one of our guests, Shaniqua Major, shared with us before was she talked about how she provides a fact sheet for how to speak about their
Mhm.
company. So this is not
Yes.
connecting journalists, but things like, um, words that you should say. So a lot of if you work with people that are unsheltered, You
Yeah.
want to make sure that person first language is noted so that the journalist knows how to refer to that, how to refer
Yeah.
to your company, how to refer to executives. I mean, the things that are really key and central to your brand's messaging of the companies that you represent, provide journalists with a quick and easy sheet to make it easy for them too, so that mistakes are not made in how they describe you or how they talk about you or how they speak about your audience, which is one small step that you can take to make sure that you're presented accurately and that you don't offend your audience.
That's so true. And it really doesn't take much effort to do it, you know? It's an easy thing. It's a simple thing. And I think oftentimes it's just something you probably don't think of, right? And then once you realize it, you think, "Oh my goodness, of course we should be doing that. Why wouldn't we?" Right?
Yeah,
It's, otherwise, I think the more helpful that we can be to our publics and to our, on behalf of our clients, the better. The better. And, hopefully clients will agree. Hopefully they won't see that as fluff work because it really isn't. It's really creating a stable basis of information about them. So you don't want anyone to wonder, right? It's like, I don't want anyone wondering, well, I wonder what they do about this. Well, here it is. But
I agree.
yeah. So, well, and another thing in all this is, as we speak of often, is just, how critical thinking is so lacking. And I was thrilled to hear new Pope Leo address critical thinking and the need to focus more on that. And this is of course, not to down anybody, but it's like just stop and think things through. Anything you see or hear, what might be the reason why it's being put a certain way. I think if we all did a little bit, we'd be that much better for it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Someone tied to this, and where I think that some of the decline has happened over the years is someone I was discussing education with someone in college courses, and
Mm,
in times past, because you're paying a lot of money for education, and these days kids are in classes that may be 100 people, so it's a lecture. It's a
yeah,
lecture hall. But
yeah.
remember those classes that were smaller size where there was truly discussion and
Mm,
interaction as part of the learning process. So you learned how to share opinions, you learned how to listen, you learned how to think critically and to form
yes.
your opinions, you research things. And, unfortunately, this generation is not getting that as part of their college experience. They're just being lectured to. And
Yeah,
while questions are allowed, it's definitely not the same as having that intimate discussion group that used to be part of the educational experience. And so,
yeah,
as PR pros, I think that's, in terms of our responsibilities, I think we have to make sure that we provide forums to lead those types of discussions, to
yeah,
help people, to remind them of how this is important. We have to model it. We have to model slowing down and not being caught up in the overwhelm and the, onslaught of information where we're not, using our critical thinking skills. And we have to remind clients to do that too, because they can be, so overwhelmed and overburdened that they're just clicking through the task and moving
yeah.
from one thing to another. And that doesn't serve any of us.
No, not at all. Well, that's a good note to end on. We hope that you found this time valuable. Just a nice little check-in with ourselves, not to get caught up in all the noise. And if you did, please do share this around. Let us know what you think at soloprpro.com. And until next time, thanks for listening to That Solo Life.